Just wanted to share a moment, share the moment of the counter snap. Got it, found it, found with the help of my young apprentice. So I'm working with this guy. A young guy comes into my shop, sometimes troubled, but a really smashing young man. Right? He's built this motorcycle. It's a Honda 250. It's just a crappy Honda 250 commuter engine, and he's built it into this race bike because it's was his father's bike. And he's built it into this race machine, and it's immaculately done. It's brilliant. So the way his mind works, the engineering of things is so important to him. And so that's why I got him to fix my car for me. They did a lovely job. I showed him, I introduced him to the mechanism a week or so ago, just a simple one. And I said, watch the Veritasium video on countersnap and understand intuitively what it is. It's about the switching of actions from one place to another place, creating a greater strength. And understand the concept. And then when I want you to come back up, I think I'm going to help you build me. Let's build this machine that I'm going to build here. Right? So introduce him to the ideas. He comes into my shop yesterday I think it was. And I said, right, look at that. And I showed him the eyeball, the Vitruvian eyeball, the God's eye watching us, and then the man, the observer and the mechanism of observation. There it is. And I said, look at this mechanism. See it as a mechanism of springs and connections. Where's the counter snap? And he went, oh, it's there. Well, he said, oh, is it there? He looked at it and he went, oh, fuck, mind blown. And I said, no, just see the mechanism and look at can you see us? And he said, well, there, look, there's a folding of the hairpin. I went, a fold. And he nailed it in that moment. Right? So he nailed it for me. Something I hadn't clocked. A fold of the hairpin spring. And so we now have imaginary centers. So the solution to Vitruvian Man, right, it's really simple. Why does the square stick out a little bit from the top of the circle? It's because the circle has dropped its center halfway through. So the man's arms represent the point where the circle changes its center, and it drops to one of two centers. It drops to the heart center, imaginary, between the two bending moments, or to the stomach center, imaginary, between the solar plexus and the root and the sacral. Yeah. And so there's imaginary center. So what he's saying is it's the decision of the man where he places his focus on his life that affects the strength of bending that creates the observation of reality. And the collapse of the wave function has a male or a female mechanism. Amazing, a negative or a positive. And so because we're forced into this negative mode now, that's where that's why it's wrong. Right? That's why it's wrong. And so it's the fold of the hairpin. So now I can see. So the way that I've drawn it in the model of the image that I shared at the start of the previous video, you see the hairpin. I've marked it fold, and that's myocardial fold, heart, literally. And there's a tear there, a tear. Now, take a piece of, take a straight line and bend it, and look at the fold. Now, you've bent that thing. You've bent it. It's bent past itself, right? You've put a twist at the top. You've bent you've created a loop at the top of this bar. Let's say that the straight line is a bar. You've bent it round. There's a loop at the top. Now, what's the mechanism of breaking, of fracturing? There's two, positive and negative. So that if you take the bending moment, the center of bending about the center of the bar, the non-existent as material, but existing in terms of force, direction, vector between tension and negative tension. And you see at the moment of fracture, it can break two ways. Look at the very top of your bend, and you'll see where the line that's going to break, it could break at the top first or at the bottom. And so the lever arm at this fold is about the action of this invisible boundary between the two. And so if you can imagine that the top one, in order for the top one to bend to fracture, the bottom one must fracture to make a space so that the sides clamp together and it fractures the top one. So it's the bottom one that fractures first. Right? or the top one can fracture first, just from tearing and ripping from the top down. So two mechanisms of fracture of the fold of the hairpin spring of light. And that's the sacral center. So now we've got it down here at the stomach center, that we're tearing, and that's the male orgasm. That's that tearing sensation. That's what we feel. We're tearing, and tearing is not good. Yeah, tearing produces salty tears, and salty tears make the planet weep, and it all goes wrong. We needed to weep sweet tears of emotion, of love and joy. Yeah, by fracturing the base first. Micro cracking of the spring arch. So the simple mechanism of fracture of this fold is now expressed in the spring arch as micro cracking. So you've got an inside and outside and a boundary of bending pin A. So pin A has been when you put pin A into the ring tension, you see it there as the ring tension bending, and so either side of that you have the fold examined. At the moment, because the hairspring pin is at the sacral center, the fracture's on the outside, creating slabs at the top. The further you go out, these cracks get bigger and bigger. They just aggregate together and create a concrete aggregate interlock in the mantle of the planet as the tectonic plates. Oh. But if you have the micro cracking on the inside, through the man having his arms out straight and his legs wide, the circle center for Vitruvian man is actually only drops a little bit, just down to the heart center, to the 0.618, not to 1.618, and creates a circle of greater strength of the spring arch. And so it micro cracks on the inside of the spring arch, and that the elastica boundary then relaxes, and the pressures from the inside from expansion, not from outside from contraction, and it all reverses, and the elastica that's currently in the mantle switches back to around the inner core where it should be, and the planet breathes a sigh of relief. And so do you. So it's just that hairspring pin now. So when you go back to Vitruvian Man, see the hairspring pin, take that idea of the micro cracking, and you need one crack to appear on the inside of that hairspring pin. How do you do it? You love it. You love the inside. The temperature changes. Yeah, the motion of entropy of temperature is adjusted through you loving the inside. It gets softer. Yeah. And so the micro crack isn't a crack at all. It's a softness of genuine elasticity of you inside your bubble of membrance, the membrane, the remembrance inside which you live, which creates you, the memory of you, your fragment of light, which goes on forever, creating its own reality in the plasma lens inside which we all live. We're just all creating the same one. The universe renders itself when we look. So that drawing answers every question. So have a look, see if you can work it out for yourself. Yeah, these men choose to be soft and loving and kind to their women specifically, and the women can become their true selves, their loving, soft, super selves, and they will love us men for the job that we're doing. No more masturbation. 24 palms make a man. That answers the puzzle. Garden of Eden. A creature existed there. Our progenitor, Adam, our current Lord. A male-female creature whose hard-on was given to him as a gift from the universe, sowing seeds of fertility without him having to touch it. Conscious seeds sown from the erection when you let the universe power it for you. But he gave us arms, gave the creature arms long enough that it could reach his cock. And if he conjured images in his mind, he could bypass it, and the orgasmic experience would be pleasant. And for that single sin, we all suffer. So hands off, lads. No more sex. We're going to find out what our true nature is. Listen for instructions. Wait for the party. See you later.